Well, hello, this is John Yates, and I chair the technology practice at the law firm of Morse, Manning, and Martin. And I'm very pleased today to be with my colleague, Joe Berkland, in our corporate technology practice. And Joe is going to talk with Sid Mookerji, who is the founder and key player in a tech community here, Silicon Road, which is an investor focused in the retail space. And Sid has been a key provider of services, but more importantly, a real benefactor to our tech community. So, Joe, let me turn it over to you. And I know, Sid, we're looking forward to hearing your story and about the areas of focus for Silicon Road. So, Joe, if you take yourself off mute, I think you're ready to go here.
Thanks, John. And Sid, thanks again for coming out today, and really good to see you again. So tell us a little bit about what you've been up to. You know, we know you've got Silicon Road, but tell us a little bit about what you're up to in the community to support the entrepreneurial ecosystem in Atlanta.
Yeah, sure. Hey, Joe. Good to see you. And John, thank you for the introduction. Yeah, so let me start off a little bit, going back a little bit of time. Originally, I had founded a company called SPI in Atlanta in 1994. That company used to focus on commerce, which is retail e-commerce and CPG. And actually, we grew it quite a bit without any external funding or any debt, quite significantly. So we had 3,000 employees in 8 countries. We had 300 retailers as clients, did 14 acquisitions, and eventually sold that company in 2018 to Cognizant. And so after that, the whole mission has been twofold. One is to create an innovation ecosystem for commerce, which is retail e-commerce and CPG. And number 2 is to encourage entrepreneurship in the city of Atlanta. So through the foundation, our foundation, the family foundation called the Mookerji Foundation, we have made pretty significant gifts to achieve that goal to Kennesaw State University, Georgia Tech, ATDC, as well as to the Creative Destruction Labs in the city. And that's kind of sort of one of the ways in which we are trying to make impact in the 2 areas we are interested in. And the other is through Silicon Road. So Silicon Road is a $30 million fund, early stage, and it was built to enhance the innovation ecosystem for commerce, right? So we think of ourselves as the Silk Road for the Silicon era, hence this name. And through that, we have made investments into 10 startups in 2020 and raised most of the 30 million already. So we are well on track to kind of achieve our goals.
That's great. You're well known for what you give back to the Atlanta community. So as somebody who's very involved in the tech and ecosystem, thanks for everything that you do. So tell us a little bit about Silicon Road, and you touched on that briefly, but what are some what is Silicon Road? What is it focused on investing in? How do you harness your past experience in retail tech to evaluate companies? And just give us a little bit of an overview of Silicon Road.
Yeah, sure. So we are the first early stage fund anywhere, as far as we know, which is focused only on commerce. And so that makes us really, really unique. And one of the things that I had when I left SPI was connections with lots of leaders within retail, right? I knew that retail badly needed innovation, commerce needed innovation. And my connections there were kind of the genesis of an idea where we decided that we want to identify the different areas within commerce that need innovation, and we are going to make investments in startups that are contributing to those areas. And so we have, as part of Silicon Road, established what we call a corporate connect program, where we have corporations essentially listen to our startups that are relevant to problems that these corporations are trying to solve. So these are corporations such as Bell's Department Stores, Home Depot, Coke Industries, Black & Decker, and so on and so forth. So about 20 such corporations have already participated in this program. And that results in commercial agreements for the startups in our portfolio. So it's good for them. And then, of course, the corporations are benefiting with really no cost by adopting innovation that they would otherwise probably struggle to find.
That's interesting. So it's a retail tech focus, and you get immediate feedback from some of who would potentially be users of some of the applications that some of your portfolios are preparing and developing. So what are some given that you're so close to that retail tech ecosystem, what are some emerging trends that you see in retail tech or generally with the pandemic, what are some lasting changes in consumer behavior? What are some sort of COVID things that maybe will go away when COVID, when quarantines and whatnot, sort of subside? But what are some, where do you see that headed?
So before I jump into the COVID topic, first of all, I want to give a little bit of perspective on how we think about innovation in commerce. So for us, we think of innovation along four parts, like four quadrants. So they are in-store tech, omni-channel, which is the mobile e-commerce and things like that, supply chain, logistics, and then finally fintech and payments. Okay, so those are the four major areas, and we are deliberately looking for innovation, whether it is startups or it is research that can solve problems in those four areas, and investing equally in all the four areas. Now, what you just said though first is very important, which is that the COVID pandemic has really disrupted retail in a very big way, as everybody knows, of course. Some estimates, the transformation in retail has kind of fast forwarded by 5 years during these past 6 months, right? So it's just been a tremendous disruptor to the industry. And our point of view is that retailers, whether it is online or brick and mortar retailers, will have to specifically address two challenges in order to succeed in a post-pandemic world. The first is that they have to change the customer experience, right? So essentially create a seamless experience across different channels, whether you partially or entirely complete a purchase on your mobile phone or on your web browser or inside a store. It should be a seamless experience with similar brand elements, for example, and convenience that is provided. And the second is the supply chain has to be transformed for a couple of reasons. Even before COVID, as you know, last mile logistics was a big problem, right? Meaning we see all these trucks parked on Peachtree Road, Peachtree Street, and they are trying to make deliveries, very disruptive to a city like Atlanta, for example. And so that needs to be solved. And the second is also because of the pandemic, suddenly the world realized that China cannot be the manufacturing answer to everything. So which means that any business, particularly retail, has to think very carefully about what kind of redundancy they can build within for their supply chains, make sure that it's not disrupted again in the future. So basically in the customer experience sphere, things like touchless payments or touchless shopping, right? Attendance-less shopping, in-store augmented reality or virtual reality, right? So those are going to be the key kinds of concepts that we'll be looking at very closely. And then definitely for supply chain, we'll be looking at artificial intelligence for creating redundancy in supply chains, and also disruptors in the last mile logistics. So things like drone deliveries. So Amazon, as you probably have heard, have introduced something called Time Air. Now they've been trying to do it for a while, but Prime Air is supposed to actually bring a package to your home within 30 minutes of you actually placing the order. And in fact, is also looking to enter into partnerships with automakers where they'll pop the trunk of your car and drop the package in there and shut it. So some really amazing technologies which are around the corner here. So those are the kinds of things that we'll look at very closely in 2021.
It's fascinating. I was actually taking some notes on your overview of how you broke some of that down. So in terms of Silicon Road's plans for 2021 and beyond, where do you see your venture capital firm going, and in terms of, are you geographic focused? What are some types of obviously retail tech and then the areas that you just touched on, but what are some other parameters and sort of where do you see your fund headed?
Yeah. So first of all, in terms of numbers, we have made investments into 10 companies so far, a little more than a year. And in 2021, we want to double that number. So we want to increase our portfolio to 20 companies where we are making small six-figure initial investments, roughly $250,000. We also want to make follow-on investments into 7 to 8 companies in our portfolio. So those are basically at a high level what we are looking to do in terms of investments. In terms of geography, we are definitely partial to the Southeast. We want more companies to be here and move here if they're not already here. But we are also in general looking at companies everywhere in the United States. And so far, for example, out of the 10 companies, 6 are in Atlanta, and the remaining are all over the US. So that's the kind of geography focus that we'll continue to maintain.
That's all the questions that I had. This has been great having you, Sid, and thank you so much. I mean, as I said, I was taking notes on some of how you were breaking down the different retail tech areas and just sort of where you see things going, and very much appreciated. And thanks so much for your insights.
And Sid, I just want to jump in and say thank you on behalf of this community, what you've done in giving back to the community through the ATDC, Georgia Tech, through Kennesaw, through the Creative Destruction Lab. So there's so many different areas, is a real tribute to your leadership. And it's also an example of what's happening in Atlanta, where successful entrepreneurs like yourself come in, do very well here, set up a fund, stay in the community, and then give back. It's one of the strengths of our community. And it's one of the ways that I think Atlanta is going to continue to maintain a significant and growing role, not just in the US, but globally as a technology leader. So I know Joe and I and the Morse, Manny, and Martin team, thank you, as does this entire community, for all you do for so many others.
Thank you, John. Thank you, Joe. Happy holidays.
Same to you. Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.